Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, which is all about one of the apps Team ProLiteracy will have access to as part of the XPRIZE Community Competition, Learning Upgrade. My name is Michelle Smith, and I'm the Membership Manager here at ProLiteracy, but I'm also the point person for members of Team ProLiteracy. If you have any questions or haven't committed to our team yet, please send us a message to xprize@proliteracy.org. Okay, before we get started, there's some housekeeping rules we need to review. Your phones will be muted during the presentation. If you have any questions, please type them directly into the question box, which is a little different than the chat box, so make sure you don't get those confused. We will be monitoring questions throughout the webinar and answering them as appropriate. Everyone who registered for this webinar will receive a link to the recording in an email that will be sent out within 24 hours, so you'll be able to review anything you want to. I am now going to hand the floor to our presenters from Learning Upgrade, Drew Robinson and Vinod Lobo. Take it away, gentlemen.
All right, thank you so much. It's exciting to be here. It's been a really long process through the XPRIZE to now finally be ready to start the communities competition in a week. So I'm excited to show what we have for you. I'm going to walk you through some of the steps of how you enroll, and then also how you can get tracking for the communities competition. So before we get started, for those of you that aren't familiar, I just want to introduce the XPRIZE and the communities competition. So the Barbara Bush Foundation Adult Literacy XPRIZE, it was a competition that started a few years ago, and the goal was to address the need of a literacy program for our low literate adults. There's 30+ million in the United States. And so the Barbara Bush Foundation and Dollar General set forth to have a competition where they would have a $7 million prize. And this was a global competition. And this is what they really wanted to see. So it had to be an app. It had to work on Android smartphones. And the results had to be measurable. The app had to be easy to use, and most importantly, it also had to be engaging. It wasn't enough to just come out with an app that worked. It had to be something that these learners would want to do on their own time. And the major reason for this is they were going to start out with a field test of 10,000 plus learners. And so these learners were going to be onboarded, and the app had to be something that the learners would have motivation to do on their own over the course of a year. So that brings us to the communities competition. So the XPRIZE was first, and the XPRIZE started with over 100 teams that qualified. Then that was pared down to semifinalists, and then there were 5 finalists. And so our team at Learning Upgrade, we were a finalist, and we found out in February that we were also the co-winner. And so of those 5 finalists, 4 of the teams were selected to take part in the communities competition. And so, the reason behind that is that you'll have access to multiple apps, but today, obviously, I'm going to be talking about Learning Upgrade. And so phase 1 of the communities competition is there were a bunch of teams that applied, and there was a prize for those that got selected there. And then phase 2, this is the one that starts on April 1st. And so 3 competitors that are able to recruit the most people to download and use the apps are going to win a share of a $500,000 prize. And so let me get into the communities competition rules now. So the reason we're talking to all of you today is that you're going to have a chance to use Learning Upgrade for free. And it's more than just a pilot. You'll have unlimited access through this open enrollment period. So starting on April 1st, you'll be able to use the code that I'm going to show you later on to have your students self-enroll. And they'll have an opportunity to do that from April 1st to August 31st of 2019. Now, in order to receive credit, those students are going to have to complete 3 logins. Those 3 logins need to be on 3 separate days, and that needs to take place on an Android phone. Most importantly, all of those Android phone users are going to have access to Learning Upgrade for an additional year after the competition. So this is the criteria for the communities competition set forth by the XPRIZE. We're taking it a step further at Learning Upgrade, and we're also making our courses available on iOS. Now, these iOS course users, they're not going to count towards the communities competition, but we wanted to make these available for all of your sites. We didn't want to limit access to our courses to just a portion of the students that you serve. We wanted to make it available for everybody. And the second thing we're going to do is, instead of just making our literacy courses available, we're also going to make all of our math available. And so that's going to include many more courses. It'll include our GED and HiSET prep. And so I'll be able to talk about those courses in a little bit. So, I've introduced the XPRIZE and, the communities competition. So now I'm going to give you a quick overview on Learning Upgrade. To start out, since this is the communities competition, we're the XPRIZE winners. And that was a massive field test. It was a 16-month, 12,000 adult learners. And the most important is, because it was such a large field test, our app, we've been with millions of, people around the world already, but it's proven and validated at Adult Ed. So, we produced the greatest gains for the pre and post test on a standardized reading assessment. And most importantly, that last bullet you'll see is we produce gains greater than what learners would have experienced during a year of classroom study. So for the Learning Upgrade app, we have 21 courses, 960 plus lessons. They cover reading, writing, and math, CCRS aligned, and that engagement piece that I showed you earlier for the XPRIZE is every single one of our lessons includes songs, video, and games, and it's available everywhere. So as I mentioned, most of the communities competition, it's just an Android competition, but we're also making ours available on iOS. So our app is designed for small chunks of learning. We have 21 courses. So this is what one of the courses would look like. Let's say your student is going to start out on our English Upgrade 1. Each one of our 21 courses has 60 lessons, and the students move through the course one lesson at a time. So they're going to start out on lesson 1, and then in order to move from one lesson to the next, they need to get 75% or better. That's what we consider a bronze. 90% or better is gold, and then 95% or better is gold. 90% or better is silver. And so they're going to earn a medal for each one of the lessons completed, and these are going to show on their course map. Once they complete all of the lessons and the final one, lesson 60, that's a final challenge, then they're going to earn a certificate. So this student here, they have a bronze certificate. And then what they're going to do is, when they finish this course, a voice will come on in the app, said, hey, congratulations, you've earned a bronze certificate. Now let's go back and repeat those bronze levels and move them up to silver. So there's going to be a little highlight that'll show them 54, 58, and 59. And so those students will go back and repeat those lessons to mastery and get those to silver. Then they're going to earn a silver certificate. Now, what happens when they earn a silver certificate is we're going to automatically enroll them in the next course. And that's where we, have our term binge learning. And so the students, especially in a competition like this, they're going to be onboarded through self-enrollment. They can either pick their course or they can take an assessment. But once they get going, from that point on, our app is going to guide them through the entire course map. And so it's really important that they get to see it here on the course map when they're starting out at the beginning. So if you have a student who takes the assessment, they place for English Upgrade 1, they can see that path to success that they have ahead of them. They're going to start on 1, work on 2, 3, and then all the way up through 5. So as you'll see here, we're making all of this available. It's not just going to be the ELA block at the top. They'll have access to all of those math courses in the middle, and they'll also have that pre-algebra, GED, and HiSET. So as we talked about, our app is, it's fun, it's engaging, the learners love it, but most importantly, it's effective. So we've had over 1 million learners in 4,000 plus schools go through our courses. And although right now everybody's talking about Learning Upgrade and the XPRIZE, we've been around for 20 years, we've been around for a long time. We've been improving student success for a long time. So the most important thing we're going to cover today is the communities competition. So I want to cover two tracks with you. One is going to be with tracking for you as a teacher, an admin, and the other is going to be the standard XPRIZE import, which is without tracking. So this is the standard XPRIZE format. So if you got an email or if you went to the XPRIZE page, you'll see that there's going to be an XPRIZE code, and you can self-enroll with that code. So all of you guys are going to be using 1155 for New Readers Press, and you can use that in the open enrollment period. Now, the thing about doing it the standard XPRIZE way is that when you use this code for a student, the student will be enrolled and they're still going to have access to Learning Upgrade. The Android users will get that additional year, but there's going to be no ability for a teacher or an admin to know when the students are logging in, how they're doing, which courses they're enrolled in. They won't be able to view any kind of aggregate data on a class or a site. And so, this standard way of onboarding, it's great, it's quick, but it is limited. And so as you see, there's no tracking or monitoring available, but the Android users, they're going to count towards the community's competition activity, and those students will have access. So the one I want to focus on today is with tracking. So we're making this available. It's not required, but we know that it's something, talking to teachers and admins, that's going to be really important to managing the community's competition groups that we're working with. So teams can apply for a community's competition pilot account, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And the learners are still going to self-enroll using an XPRIZE code. The open enrollment is the same dates, but the big one here is tracking and monitoring is included. So what we'll do is we'll include a tracking login, and a teacher and admin will be able to log in. They'll be able to view reports. They'll be able to monitor individual students and see how they're doing on different courses. And they'll be able to work one-on-one with students as well. And so same rules apply for Android users. Those are the ones that are going to count towards progress on the community's competition, but iOS device users will be able to use this code as well. And then the Android users will have that free access. So I'm going to walk you through now what it's going to look like in the app. And this is for without tracking, but pay attention even if you're looking to do with tracking, because the process is going to be very similar. So if you're going to do this without tracking, you're going to get the XPRIZE Communities Competition Self-Enrollment Code. And we've created these handy PDFs here. So you'll have your code 1155, and all of the steps that I'm going to cover right now are included in this one pager. So you'll be able to print these one pagers off. You can put it in a whiteboard if you have, like a bulletin board in the hallway, or you can just print out hundreds of these and give them to all of your students. And that'll make it really easy. Everybody use the same code and they can self-enroll from there. So let's cover the steps. In the Play Store or the App Store, your learners are going to search for Learning Upgrade, and they're going to download the Learning Upgrade app. Our app icon is uniform. So you'll see here it's a circle with a cursor. It'll either display in black or white. So in the app, it's white. If they're searching for it in the App Store, it'll be black. So just look for a black circle with a white cursor and Learning Upgrade, and that's what they'll download. When they launch the app, they'll have these three buttons, and the first thing they'll want to do is click the big orange Get Started. After clicking Get Started, they're going to click on the English reading or the math track. So in most of our cases here for the XPRIZE, we're going to be clicking on the English reading. And then you'll see the students will have a choice. So they can start at the very beginning, they can take a placement test, or they can select directly into a course. So we give them those three options, and they'll be able to pick exactly where they want to start. So once they've selected a course, this is going to be the most important page here. So the student's going to enter their first name, they're going to enter their last name, and then where it says class code, that's where they're going to enter the community's competition code. So they would be entering 1155. Now we also have an optional student ID, email, or phone. So if your students have like an internal ID that you use at your site and it'll help you better track them for reporting, then you can have them enter that information there. they can also do an email or phone. After you click submit there, then our screen is going to show the users their username, password, and school ID. Now this is really important because we don't lock students onto a device. We give them a username, password, and school ID because one of the things we noticed when we first started launching the app is a lot of our low literate adults don't have an anchor phone. So they don't have a phone that they're using for a year or two. Sometimes they're shared devices, sometimes they're prepaid devices, and sometimes the devices aren't in the best shape, so they may need to be replaced at a certain time. So by having a username, password, and school ID, your learners are going to be able to take that and log in on any device, and it'll be able to track them regardless of where they're logging in. So they'll be able to log in on their Android device, and then if they have an iPad at school, they'll be able to log in there, continue working on their lessons. Then if they go to the library in the computer lab, they can log in. So make sure once they click submit, they either screen grab this or they write it down somewhere. And again, this is another area where it's really important that you apply for that tracking account, because if your students are logging in without tracking, there's going to be no way for you to retrieve this information. They would have to email us. Whereas if you have a tracking account, you can just log into your tracking account that I'll show you in a bit, and you'll be able to view all of your students' usernames and passwords and retrieve those quickly and easily. Okay, so after we show them the username and password, they're going to see their courses page. So this one here, the student directly enrolled in English Upgrade 2. So that one's going to show in yellow, and then all the courses that aren't active are going to show in gray. Now, the most important thing you want to do if you're with your students while they're self-enrolling is make sure you check the bottom of the screen. So what you'll see here is the XPRIZE team code. So for you, it'd be 1155. And that way you'll know, okay, that was a successful login, students on the XPRIZE team code. And as long as they log in 3 times on 3 separate days using an Android device, they're going to count. The second thing I want to cover on the courses page, students ask this a lot. Let's say they clicked English Upgrade 2, but they also want to take other courses. So we've made it really easy. All you have to do is click on a grayed out course. So let's say you wanted to click on Math Upgrade 3. It'll take you to the Math Upgrade 3 course page with those 60 lessons. And then there's a button that says Add Course. So your students can add as many courses as they need here, and they can work on them simultaneously. Okay, so now I want to cover with tracking. So the first thing you'll want to do is at New Readers Press, you can click on Digital Solutions. You'll see an option for students and teachers. You can click on the teachers, and then you'll find us, Learning Upgrade. So on that Learning Upgrade page, you'll be able to apply for a pilot. And what you'll do when you submit for the pilot is you'll just fill in your contact info, and then there'll be a field where you can enter your XPRIZE Communities Competition code. So we'll receive that pilot request that you have. We'll know that you're, part of the New Readers Press Communities Competition by seeing that code. And then you're going to receive your tracking pilot email. And so the tracking pilot email is going to let you know that your XPRIZE Communities Competition tracking account is ready. And what you'll see here is students can now self-enroll using your class code. And so the class code for you will be 1155 and then 3 digits. So you'll know it's linked to your XPRIZE code because the first 4 digits will be exactly the same. Now the important thing here is we're going to have a link that'll say class code instruction sheet. So when you click on that, it'll give you a 1-pager that your students can use to enroll. You'll also have links to the App Store. And then if you're going to be doing, let's say you're having an onboarding party in your class, you're having 100 people show up, there's also a YouTube video to walk you through it. So you can just launch that video, you can play it on a projector, and the students will be able to go through those steps one at a time in the video, and they can use that 1-page PDF. At the bottom of the email, there'll be the teacher tracking instructions. So you'll just click the login. You'll enter a username, password, and school ID that we'll be providing you with. And then from that point on, you'll be able to click on our reports tab to view things, or our most popular is the student monitor, which I'll show you in a bit. So here's the 1-pager that we linked to from the email. So again, for everybody here, the first 4 digits will be the XPRIZE Communities Competition code 1155. And then the next 3 digits are going to be random. And so the students, when they enter this code in the class code field, they're not only going to be attached to your communities competition, but they're going to be directly self-enrolled into your tracking account class. So they're going to follow the same steps. They'll click Get Started. They're going to select their course. And then when they get to this page, they'll enter their first name, last name. Now, instead of just 1155, they're going to enter those 3 extra digits that'll show on the code sheet. So the most important thing about having this account is that you're going to be able to track your learners through our web-based monitor, which is important, for making sure that everybody's logging in, seeing who's making progress, seeing how they're doing on different content areas. You'll also be able to help with the motivation. And so when those students, they let's say they finish a course, instead of just, celebrating it on their own, you can celebrate it as a class. You can print those certificates out for the learners and make a big deal out of it. You can find those learners that are falling behind, and that's going to be really important for the communities competition. If you see that learners aren't logging in consistently, or maybe there were students that created an account during your self-enrollment period but haven't logged in a few weeks, it'll give you an opportunity to reach out. Okay, so as I mentioned in that pilot email, the number one thing we recommend our tracking accounts to use is the student monitor. So you'll log into your account and there'll be a button that says student monitor. And if these are the only 2 things you ever do, you'll be able to monitor your class perfectly. So the student monitor will load. You'll see here that all these students are in English Upgrade 1. And you saw on the courses map that there's 60 lessons. And so now they're going to display all in one row. So each tile is going to represent one of the lessons. And you'll see that the yellow is the gold, so that's 95% or better. Silver is 90% or better. And then the bronze is 75% or better. And then those reds mean that the student didn't get above 75%. So that means they're going to have to play that lesson again. So this is really important. There's a point of frustration for a lot of students. Sometimes, when you're viewing this live, you'll be able to hover over those and get live data. And so sometimes we'll hover over a red and it'll say, hey, this student played this lesson 1 time. They got 71%. Okay, as a teacher, I don't have to do anything. They're going to play that lesson again and pass it. But on other occasions, you'll hover over a red and say, hey, we're working on vowel blends, and they've played this 14 times and their high score is 48. And so that's an opportunity as a teacher to reach out to that student, maybe work through the lesson together, maybe have some group time. But this report is going to give you an opportunity to identify those problem areas. If you have some time for in-class instruction with your students, it also gives you an opportunity to look at class-wide difficulty areas. And included in this pilot, you also have access to our whole class lessons. So if you want to do something on your projector, you'll have access to that. And then you'll also see the certificates here. So you can filter this down when you're actually viewing the report. There's only certificates view. So you'll click on that. You'll see all your students that have earned a certificate, and you can print those out. So that's a nice one for a quick view. Most of the teachers with the tracking account are going to want to use our student progress report by date. And so this is going to be a table-based version of the student monitor. And the nice thing here is that you can set a start and an end date. So if you just want to see what was completed over the weekend, over the last week, or for the entire open enrollment period, you can just set those date parameters and you'll be able to view the activity that took place in those dates. You'll also be able to see numbers on, hours played, average on the entire course. You'll be able to see how many levels are gold, silver, and bronze. And then you can also filter down by content areas. So, in this one, you'll see a lot of these students have completed multiple English upgrade courses. You can just select English only, and now we're going to take the totals of all the English. You can do math only, or you can do all. And if you click all, each student is just going to show on one row, and we'll give you aggregate data on everything they've completed. So in some of our schools that we work with, students have completed 6 or 7 courses across math and English, and they want to know the total hours time on task that a student spent. If you use this report, that'll give you the opportunity to do that in a quick and easy way. Then the big one is to celebrate student success. So we find this is hugely important with a lot of the programs that we work with. This one here is a refugee center here in San Diego. We're a Southern California company based out of San Diego, and this is UMI Learning Center. And this was one of the most incredible pilots that we've ever done. We do annual reports, and they were on a pilot with us, and in the span of 3.5 months, they had more activity per person than a lot of high activity accounts were completing in 9 to 12. And so this was only 3 months into the pilot that they were doing, but they already had 20 to 30 certificates that had been earned, which is really impressive when you consider that it takes anywhere from 15 to 25 hours to earn a certificate. And a lot of these students had finished multiple. And they were really the group that really introduced us to this style of binge learning. When we got a chance to talk to them, a lot of them are mothers with 3 or 4 children. And so there's just not a lot of time to spend working on courses. And so we asked them, where do you find the time to work on Learning Upgrade? And, some of them had 3 or 4 courses completed. And they said they're able to do it, when they're waiting for their students to get out of school, while they're sitting there waiting at soccer practice, while they're in line. And then the most important one is once their kids go to bed, that's their Learning Upgrade time. And so instead of Netflix, watching a show, they were finishing sometimes 5 or 6 lessons per night. And so this was a really important pilot for us, and that they were able to show us a lot of uses for the Learning Upgrade app that kind of helped guide us through a lot of the implementation that we did in the XPRIZE. Okay, so deployment models. So again, the first one we mentioned was the XPRIZE. So that was our field test.
Hey, Drew, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've got a bunch of questions, so I was wondering if we could tackle some of these.
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, so the first question, does it need to be on a phone? Can students use tablets such as Kindle?
Sure, so not Kindle, that's Amazon. It can be used on any Android or iOS Apple device, and it can also be used on the web. Now, I just want to repeat that only Android logins are going to count towards the communities competition, but once a student has that username, password, and school ID, they can log in on an Android, iOS, or the web.
All right, thanks. Will the competition be accessible on, well, I think you just answered this, tablets as well?
It will.
Okay. And can we share this widely with our community partners?
Sure. So as long as they're affiliated with your program, then yeah, adult learners under the umbrella of your program, that'd be great.
All right, thanks. There's just a couple more. Let's see. Will using multiple devices count for the 3 times logging in and using the app?
Sure. So it's attached to the account. So it's not the only requirement for the device is that it's Android. But let's say a student created an account on an Android device and they completed 1 lesson. Then for whatever reason, let's say that phone broke and they got another Android device, they could log in using their username, password, and school ID on that new device, and it's going to still count. So they could log in on 3 separate Android phones using the same Learning Upgrade account, and that'll be 3 logins on 3 separate days.
Drew, this is Michelle. I want to double check on that one because we had thought that it was per device. So we could probably double check on that one and get back to everybody on the FAQ that we've created.
Sure. Sure, yeah.
Okay, let's do a couple more and then we'll continue and just save a few for the end. How do you know which level to get your students started with?
Sure. So you have two choices there. The first is for the student to take the placement. So when they're selecting the course, they can direct enroll or they can click placement. So if they click placement, instead of seeing that course on the courses map, they're going to have a link to start the placement. So we're going to guide them through either an English or a math placement. And then once we've assessed their ability, then we're going to enroll them in the appropriate learning upgrade course. The other option is we have enrollment tables. And so we have those on the courses page for learning upgrade. And there's a CASAS and a TABE table. So if you have the scores that students have already taken for assessments that you've used, then you can just use those tables and say, hey, they got, a CASAS 210. That's going to put them in, let's say English Upgrade 3. So you'll have the option of direct enrollment. You can take the assessment, or you can use a table for placement.
Great, thanks. Let's do one more here for now. For hours played, is there a timeout time where the timer will stop due to inactivity?
There is, yeah. So we do have a timeout.
All right, I think we'll stop there, the questions for now, and let you continue. And for the other questions, we'll definitely get to those once we're done.
Absolutely. I only have, just a little bit more, so we'll be able to actually have quite a bit of time to answer everyone's questions. And so the most important thing for the communities competition is going to be the first few days. A fast deployment where we have, a lot of students self-enrolling from the onset is huge. So we've had an opportunity to work with, a lot of different adult ed programs throughout the U.S. and have developed something that we think is really effective. And so we have videos on this. So on our YouTube channel, if you want to hear from teachers and students that have used Learning Upgrade and then talk to us about some of our models, we have the blended learning, which we developed at Sweetwater here in Southern California. And that's the whole class lessons in class and at home. So they were using computer labs, they were using their smartphones, the library literacy programs. And so this one is on the tutor-based models. So here, we had situations where, they try to get the one-on-one tutors, but a lot of the time the learners will come, they're motivated, and then, oh no, we have a 3 to 6 month wait before we can get you in. So in those cases, they're getting the learners enrolled in Learning Upgrade. And now by the time 3 months have passed and they get placed with a tutor, that tutor has 3 months of assessment. So the student's taken, let's say Math Upgrade 2 and 3. Now we know exactly where they need help and where that tutor can focus their time. Also family learning. And so this is one I work really close with Migrant Ed. And so this is a situation, where we have the adults come in on our Saturday academies. We get all the adults enrolled, and then we also have their children enrolled. And so they get to learn together. And then we also have our non-traditional programs, like the UMI Learning Center that I showed you, Workforce, YMCA, churches, and then we work with quite a few refugee centers. And so the one thing that all of these have in common, when we look at the ones that are successful, it's the ones that really focus that first week or that first day on an onboarding party. And so different groups have come up with different ideas on how to do this. Some will have food, some will just have everybody come together. But when a Learning Upgrade pilot and license is really successful, we can almost always look back to that first week. And so our goal is, you guys are going to get started. You'll hopefully get that tracking account, and then you'll have that one pager with the class code. And when you get that, try to have everybody come in and, hopefully meet physically. If not, email it and try to set a time. And then the goal that you want to have for that onboarding party is you want every single student to either come with the app downloaded, and then if they're not coming with the app downloaded, make sure that they're going to have access to Wi-Fi so that they can download the app. They're going to create their account, add in that communities competition code, and then the most important thing after that is to get them to complete a lesson right then and there. Once we can get them to complete a lesson in that first session, they're hooked. And from that point on, all you have to do is sit back and look at your reporting. So really start thinking about this. When we start on April 1st, that's the first day you can use the code. Try to find a way that you'll be able to either have, an in-class or, some kind of digital onboarding party. And if you have the opportunity to provide some kind of, rewards, whether it be food or, for people that earn certificates, can earn a gift card or something like that, it really makes a difference. Okay, so that's everything that I have for today. I just wanted to cover, what is the XPRIZE? What is the Communities Competition? The major focus was the split. You have the two choices for without tracking versus with tracking. You have so many tools to use with the tracking, so make sure you fill out that form, and that way when you launch, you're going to have a tracking account and be able to monitor the students that you have on the Communities Competition. And then the final thing is, once you do get those learners self-enrolled, to just monitor, make sure everybody's logging in, and then if you have a question, you'll be able to reach out. So yeah, for the rest, the remaining time, wanted to open it up to any questions. So feel free to provide those in the questions box.
All right, we just have a couple right now. Let's see. Students who receive one-on-one classes, can they participate?
Sure.
And what happens at the end of the XPRIZE competition?
Sure. So, I covered a little bit in the rules. So there's the open enrollment, and so that's April 1 to August 31. So everybody gets free and unlimited access for that time period. For the users on the web or on an iOS device, their courses are going to expire on August 31, 2019. The ones that we're using on an Android smartphone, as I mentioned, they're going to get an entire year after that. So they'll be able to go all the way through August 31 of 2020. Now, the thing that they're not going to have anymore is the tracking. So the tracking account with the reporting and all of that functionality, that's in the open enrollment. So from April 1 to August 31 of 2019, that's where you're going to get everything. And so for those students who expire, then you can reach out to your colleagues at New Readers Press, and we'll be able to talk about how we can continue from there.
All right, and just a couple more. Can you remind us how to get the form to sign up as a classroom?
Sure. So on the New Readers Press website, Learning Upgrade, we're going to be listed under resources. So under resources, you're going to see an option for teachers or students. And so if you go to the one that's for teachers, you'll be able to see us there. And under our Learning Upgrade page, you'll see where you can submit for a pilot. And then I'm not sure if it's live yet, but there will be an option to type in your Communities Competition code. You can fill this out now, but again, don't have your students start until April 1, because no progress will count before that date. That's the first date that code will go live for the self-enrolled students. But you can fill out these tracking pilot requests now. And yeah, just make sure you include your Communities Competition code of 1155.
And all users do all users have to compete or participate from the first day until the 31st?
No, there's no requirements that they have to. So they'll just have access during that time period. So yeah, so from April 1 to August 31, anybody that enrolls in that open enrollment period, they'll have unlimited access to our courses. But if they drop from the class or find out they don't have time, that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Drew. And this is Michelle. I'm just jumping in on the question we received a couple of times about the 3 times and whether it has to be on one device or not. We had been told previously that it had to be on the same device, but we're not sure. So we're checking with some people at the XPRIZE to double check that for us. And we'll put on the FAQ and send it out in our e-blast that we sent on April 1st. So we'll definitely get that information out to everyone for sure.
Okay.
Okay, I think that those are all the questions that we have. So thanks very much, Drew. Really appreciate you taking us through Learning Upgrade and helping everyone understand the app a lot. We're really excited about the competition.
We are too. We're excited to get started, and I appreciate everybody attending today. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.